And we are live, Remington. Today's show is going to be the biggest we've ever had. The biggest we've ever had.
It's a big show, Matt.
This is the Listen to This Bull live show. For any of you that have never seen this before, this is a show where we talk about bullshit in the insurance world on both sides, and we leave this open to commentary. So it's live for a reason. You can ask questions live, and we'll answer whatever it is you ask. You could ask anything, really. Like, why does Remington look like he might have a little bald spot developing on that one side of his head a little bit? No, damn it. He's still so damn sexy. I can't. It's just not fair. Really, it's just not. Anyway, today's show is huge. We have Brianna Sacks from the Washington Post with us. And if you don't know who that is, that's the one that just dropped that big expose on insurance carriers slashing estimates written by insurance adjusters, which spawned this whole thing that led to investigation from Jimmy Petronas and all this. We have her here to answer your questions, and I cannot wait to get into it. So I'm just going to go ahead and push this button and get things started. Brianna.
Hi. Thank you.
So how long have you been with the Washington Post, real quick?
I'm going to make sure to turn my notifications off here. I actually just hit 6 months, which is crazy. So feels like I've been there for an eternity and no time at all. So it's very new for me.
No kidding. Only 6 months.
Only 6 months. Yeah.
Huh. Well, I spent quite a bit of today digging into articles that you've written, and based on the phone call that we had prior, you seem like you're really digging in deep on some of these things. So do you have prior journalistic experience?
Oh yeah, I couldn't have gotten that job if I had not had prior journalistic experience. I've been journalizing since 2000. I think I got my first reporting job in 2017, but I was like in the industry for a year or two before that. So I was at BuzzFeed News for almost 7 years doing disaster and investigative reporting and national reporting, breaking news, basically everything.
So all the disaster stuff you're still getting into now.
Yeah, well, I realized I really loved it early on in my career. And then this Washington Post job came about. 4 people sent it to me saying that this job was basically made for you. So I applied and got really lucky to get it. So that's awesome. Where I'm at now. Yeah.
Had your name all over it.
Yes. Yes.
Oh yeah. The reason that we have you on the show is because you recently made a post or an article, Insurer/Hurricane Ian Payouts Far Below Damage Estimates, Documents and Insiders Reveal. And that kind of spawned some things. For the viewer's sake, I got to say that it takes a lot of balls to write something like that sometimes. A lot of the advertising dollars for a lot of media channels and news channels come from insurance companies. So I'm so glad you wrote it.
Thank you.
Ecstatic, really.
I didn't realize what I think a big feed it was. I mean, it just was a good story, and I chased it down and just was doing my job. So I did hear that feedback from quite a few people in Florida, which was surprising.
No kidding. Well, I mean, no one was writing anything about any of it. It was all about how public adjusters are locusts and things along those lines, and how the insurance companies are going to do everything right for people. And very few real investigative work was done, or at least reported on, until after your article dropped. And then suddenly, at least in Florida, the local news started picking up a lot of the information. And of course, they dispersed it with things about public adjusters being the devil again. But it did spawn an investigation, it seems. We'll
see.
Trump.
Yeah, that's still TBD. I'm trying to get information on that investigation that's allegedly happening. So I don't. Allegedly.
Words are key, Matt. And hey, for viewers out there that have not read the article, it's Washington Post. It is titled "Insurers Slash Hurricane Ian Payouts Far Below Damage Estimates. Documents and Insiders Reveal." Everybody, take 10 minutes and read it. It is a fantastic article. And I piggyback on what Matt said. Kudos to you. There's a lot of articles that come out maybe against advocates for policyholders such as homeowners across the state of Florida. It was time to kind of bring some things to light that's happening, especially after this Cat 4, sometimes people are saying now Cat 5 hurricane hit Southwest Florida.
Yeah, how did you even come across this story?
Funny story. Well, I mean, it kind of came to me randomly. I was covering Hurricane Ian for another publication at the time, and I was in touch with some sources who were in the disaster response space on the ground there. And I was originally chasing, I wouldn't call them reports, but like anecdotal narratives that the death toll for Ian was going to be much, much higher than people were saying, and people felt that authorities were hiding the death toll from them. So I was trying to talk to people who were like on the ground there, and one person, actually TJ Ware, I like linked up with, and he hit me back up a week later and was like, so I don't think the death toll thing's a thing, but I'm hearing some other kind of crazy shit from some public adjusters who are saying that insurance companies are, going in and changing their work. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound legit. And so I just kind of started reaching out to people, like posting in Facebook groups. And there were other things that happened disaster-wise during that time, but I spent 4 months on the story and investigating from mid-November until when we published. So,
and for the audience's sake, the report is on insurance companies taking an estimate written by an independent adjuster or a TPA firm, or possibly even inside the TPA firm making these changes, but they're taking these estimates and they're cutting them. They're cutting whole sections out. They're deleting photos. They are editing the notes that are written in these things. It's egregious and it's ugly. And then they're leaving the names of those adjusters on those reports as if they're the ones that wrote it and kept it that way.
Right. Which is for Florida statute, a criminal act to defraud the anybody. So that did really stand out to me, and what made the story so powerful, and why we were able to do it. So for any of those out there who are like thinking of helping reporters out, these public adjusters were brave enough to take their reports and show me and walk me through what they had done and like what their work was, and then the finished product, which they stood up and said, I didn't do this, and it has my name on it, and these policyholders are getting screwed, and I might be on the hook for this. So I was able to see, the documents, and that's how we were able to do it, the story.
I mean, there were certain things in there, specific ones that I thought were especially crazy. The revised notes, honestly, the notes being revised and the photos being deleted bother me more than just estimates being cut. It's possible an insurance adjuster wasn't meeting the estimatics guidelines that they had, but to remove the photos that they took, there's no reason to do that ever. I can't think of a single reason why you need less photos on the file, and to change specific wording. So some of the wordings that they changed, it went from roof was damaged due to high velocity winds during Hurricane Ian, changed to roof was damaged during Hurricane Ian. And so they took the cause of loss out of the notes in a lot of these cases. Mm-hmm. Which, the other reason why you'd want to do that is to allow someone else to determine what the cause of loss is from photographs.
I mean, I've learned a lot about insurance, and I did learn that it did not used to be this way, that the system has changed quite a lot in the last decade, and experts with whom I spoke said that this is how companies can get away with it, is they keep they keep people very separate, right? So they have the third party administrators come in and they hire these guys and there's this contract, and then they bring on independent people and these independent people. So they're like, layers away. They go out and do their job and they like submit it into Xactimate. And then they're pretty removed from the internal process, from like the desk adjusters all the way up. So that is something that I learned that enabled, I think enables a lot of this to happen.
Yeah. I know that IAs normally make changes to these things, but it's that they're asked to, and there's a back and forth. There's a collaboration between the carrier, the insurance adjuster who wrote these estimates, and that way the insurance adjuster who's leaving their name still on there is the one that's making those edits or changes. They might not agree with the edits or changes that they're being asked to make, but at least they're the ones that are making it. To show that this person has done these things, like Heritage specifically sent out a letter where it says Heritage received the detailed field adjuster estimate in the amount of $24,000 something dollars, and they acted like that was the amount that the field adjuster wrote. They received this detailed field adjuster estimate when in fact Heritage might have been the one that changed their estimate from 200 something thousand to that dollar amount, and they made it seem like it was the third party that made that change.
Yeah, I think that was a good smoking gun that we got, as we were able to see. And I think that like as frustrating as these investigations can be, because they're so long, and by the end of it, I'm like not human and like, look like a crazy, like mad scientist who haven't left the house in like 2 days. But I was able, because it took so long, I was able to like see the process come full circle, where some of these families were getting letters from their insurance company with the final determination, and it had the exact same amount that the insurance adjuster told me that like they did it right, and then they showed me what they had written. So we're able to be like, ding, 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 like the insurance companies are actually sending these out to people, so that was pretty major.
And I'm glad you brought it to light. I really did. I know for a fact, I have friends that are independent adjusters, and actually I was hired to consult one in which he was very upset that the carrier was changing his estimates and sending it to the homeowners with his name on it. And he asked me to make it stop. And so, is a demand to make it stop. So look, that's just one instance. We all know there was many homeowners affected by Hurricane Ian, and who knows how rampant it actually is.
Yeah.
Remington,
I mean, that's the thing.
Is this fraud?
So fraud gets used in a legal sense. Well, people throw fraud around a lot. Okay. And I'm not the one to throw fraud around or even bad faith unless I truly think it is. And I think anybody who has known me for a while and has worked with me would agree to that. But there are elements of fraud that need to be hit legally for there to actually be an act of fraud. And I'll just give you an example. Okay. Quick 20, 30-second example of frauds and I like to use the KISS method. It's just the way I like to do business. So let's say, and we'll go off the IA.
You like to kiss people during business?
Exactly. So no, that's false. But anyway, number one is, let's say that an independent adjuster goes out to a property. He sees damage on all 4 slopes of a roof. He drafts an estimate saying that this roof needs to be replaced due to hurricane damage. He submits that to the desk adjuster at the carrier. The carrier then modifies that estimate, only showing what they believe need to be 15 tiles to be replaced. The desk adjuster sends 15 tile estimate with the IA's name on it to the homeowner saying the IA only found 15 damaged tiles on this roof. Here's the key, is that the homeowner, first off, the insurance company has to know that they're lying. It's a misrepresentation. Secondly, is the homeowner has to reasonably rely on that misrepresentation. And then lastly, that it has to damage that person, the homeowner in this case, relying on the misrepresentation. So if they say there's only 15 damaged tiles, oh, I'm so sorry, it's below your hurricane deductible, we're not going to pay you out. That homeowner that doesn't know anything about roofs and insurance believes them and then goes along their way when really their entire roof has been damaged from Hurricane Ian. That's fraud. So it's got to hit those elements. I mean, I could write a whole book on fraud, but that's it in the KISS method, so to speak.
Yeah. So then this is fraud.
If they are lying to the homeowners and the homeowners are accepting these lies, that is fraud.
So if the homeowner doesn't accept the lies because they know they're lies, then it's still fraud, though, because there's the intent, right?
Well, legally, there has to be some type of damage, right? So the person relying upon the lie has to be damaged. So that's the legal portion of it. Does that make sense?
Are they damaged by being underpaid automatically?
I think they are in a sense. I mean, you could come up with arguments like, look, rainy season is now pretty much in Florida, right? Hurricane season is in 2 months, July, right? That's when it starts. We all know it's pretty much typically fall. If they're not replacing their roof because they're getting underpaid, there's definitely an argument that they're not in a good place.
I think what's tough too, and what I learned, I haven't done verified reporting on this, but like what I was told was in Florida, the work product privilege it prevents attorneys, public adjusters, homeowners from seeing what is going on in an insurance company. So I didn't realize like what a big deal it was that I got my hands on these documents because people were like, here you go. Here they are. And I was like, cool, I will look these over. But I get, talking to an investigator at DFS, and she was like, I've never seen that before. So insurance companies have kept it really locked down, and it's very hard for the homeowner to even know they're being lied to, because if they request those reports, their documents, they're only going to get the final version. They're not going to get the adjuster's original one, is what I was told.
I've been told this, and I haven't verified this either, but I've been told this from some IAs that not only do they only get a finalized version, all previous versions are completely eradicated, so they don't exist anymore. So there's no record of edits that have been made over a period of time either. I don't know exactly how they do that, but if there is some kind of a records request for those kinds of things, if it doesn't exist for them to provide it, then how could they? This kind of thing did happen during Superstorm Sandy. Engineering firms had a lot of their paperwork changed by the insurance company, which is a complete third-party individual. It wasn't any party to this, really. So it almost seems worse that an engineer report was edited when that's a licensed trade that has to be stamped by the engineer. But insurance adjusters do have a license. So could the insurance adjuster get in trouble for this?
I mean, that's what they were worried about. I think that if it had their name on it, was their concern. So,
I mean, do you know if there's protections for IAs that are hired by the carrier?
If somebody changes their estimate and sends it to the homeowner, and I mean, they don't have any control over that necessarily, I mean, to an extent. Now, if they know it's happening and they're just letting it fly, that's a different story. I think that's hard to prove. But I feel like they would be protected. Look, if they have their product and their product is saved on their server, and they, can show that it was changed and altered by a third party who has Adobe edits, like they're protected at that point.
I mean, if they don't have it saved, though, can a policyholder sue a specific adjuster in Florida?
Like an IA for negligence and things like that?
Yeah.
It's happened for sure.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. Well,
but they are, if it is their product, they are acting on in a sense on behalf of the carrier. Like, right, the carrier hired them to go out and investigate the loss, to document the loss, and to provide their findings back to the desk adjuster. So they are in a sense acting on behalf of the carrier, but Now, like I said, it's different if the carrier is making those changes, in my opinion.
Brianna, do you happen to know if any of the policyholders that you reported on plan to bring any fraud charges against the carriers?
I do not know. I think they're just still trying to like be made whole by their insurance companies, and I'm not really sure if they understand it is fraud. So I don't have that information. I'm trying to get info from the state as to like what they're doing with it. So we will see.
I kind of hope you get some info back from them at some point because nobody else has.
It was interesting because the story hit, and then I was given the name of an investigator who had reached out to some of my sources and was talking about, you know, the fraud, saying she was investigating. So I called her, and she seemed very gung-ho about looking into this, and like was hoping to get more information from me. And then she just completely disappeared. And then I was told that she was going out of town, and then she just stopped returning my calls and messages. So I'm not really sure what happened, or like kind of what the update is with the state.
Yeah, I mean, the state attorney general's office could probably bring some fraud allegations here as well. But did you happen to speak with Jimmy Petronas during your investigation?
No, we reached out for a statement, which I don't believe that we got.
Yeah. I mean, there have been other reporters that have talked about how much money was donated to his campaign from insurance companies, something like $2 million verified.
Yes. There's been a lot of good. Politico has been on him. A lot for his connections and some other, you know, shady stuff that he has done with using state resources and a car, and there's a lot there.
Yeah. So if someone suspected that this was happening, if that the carrier might have edited or altered the IA's information or what was in there, it doesn't seem like there's any way that they would be able to find out. Not really.
I'm not sure. Well, with this new law that takes place July 1st, there are new requirements in there that make the insurance company have to list what changes they are making and why to a report. So that is, so there will be a record of it.
That's nice.
Yeah, we'll see. In
July.
July 1st. Yeah. But I mean, now I think it's so hard because I think they, you know, I don't want to, I was, you know, per reporting and what experts think is that insurance companies purposely keep the TPAs kind of removed, as I was saying. And when the adjuster shows up to the house, I think that the policyholder thinks like, oh, this is my person. Like, this is who I'm going to be working with through this whole time. And like, we'll build a relationship. But really, like, that's just the kind of person doing the early grunt work. And then, as we know, like, they're switched from adjuster to adjuster to adjuster. So they don't really know who's in charge. And that's really hard. And they can't like call that person up and be like, hey, like, how much do you think my damage is worth, and get that information and then have something to compare it to when they get their determination letter.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way things used to work. You'd have the same guy that was going to write the estimate, and he had the authority to make a decision. And then that changed because the more obfuscation they're going to have, the more likely it is they can get away with things by using third-party companies, TPA firms, to do things. They can have that third party do all this stuff and then blame it on them, and then, you know, I don't know, fire that company, but prevent themselves from having bad faith possibly. Remington, that's a good question for an attorney. If a TPA firm commits bad faith, is that still a bad faith action against the carrier?
I feel like you need to prove that the carrier was involved somehow for it to be
that. Yeah.
That's just my opinion on it. You could ask 10 different attorneys. They could give you 10 different answers. I try to give you the most practical one, like, and reasonable. I feel like the carrier's got to be known what's going on.
Yeah, the journalists in us, same for us. It was like we had to try and prove the connection between the insurance company and the TPA, because like the insurance company could just, lay the TPA out to dry, just being like, oh, we didn't know that this was happening. But we did have evidence from one adjuster who had someone with a heritage email record of that going into her report. So that was like that connected. And then just like people saying that they were given directives. We had emails. And I'm also going to hop into the comments here, just answering Sarah Mary Parker, who asked the best practices for whistleblowers to contact journalists confidentially.
Yeah.
Yay. We love that. Yes, there's many ways that you can do that. And like, I can give my information. If it's about this and you're asking me in general, I can give my information after, but just in general, usually news organizations, they'll have like tip lines. There's encrypted messaging systems called Signal, Signal, which a ton of journalists are on. And you can document drop there, as well as WhatsApp is also secure. And so those are ways that we can get info if you want it to be very secure. So happy to help with that.
Yeah, we did a whole episode on whistleblower actions at one point, and the opposing side decided that they were going to make a big deal out of the American Policyholder Association as if they were the ones that were committing fraud by asking for whistleblower commentary and providing confidentiality to them. There's definitely cases where the insurance company requires that IAs that work for them sign agreements that don't allow them to disparage them in any way whatsoever. I wonder, though, if those agreements are nullified if they're asking the IA to do something illegal or unethical. I don't know.
I don't know. Something I was really interested in is why these TPAs, these third-party administrators, do this work for, like, what the contracts are like. Are there kickbacks for this? Is it how much money are they actually making? Because if these estimates are much lower than they originally were, like obviously, like they're losing commission. So does it just guaranteed business that they keep getting the same contract over and over again? That is something that I was interested in trying to learn more about, because it does not seem in the interest of these independent adjusting contracting firms to be slashing estimates that drastically for them, but
Right.
Unless there's other things going on.
Yeah, from my conversations with some opposing counsel types, defense attorneys, Steve Badger mostly. I don't know if you got a chance to talk to him, by the way, Brianna, but he's interesting to talk to. Yeah, so they want to make sure that it is apparent that they can edit estimates from the IAs. They want to make sure that that's known to be normal. But I think that where they don't talk about, and what I haven't heard from the defense counsel yet, is why they would delete photos or edit notes from the IA. It has nothing to do with the estimate. So it doesn't have anything to do with anything that's outside of their normal authority. They're not making a causation determination necessarily. They're reporting on what it is that they found. So I think that that's really where it gets me, that they're editing and deleting photos. Deleting photos just seems so wrong. I can't think of any scenario where that's okay unless they accidentally caught a photo of an insured in a weird position or something, which happens. I mean, that definitely happens. It's happened to me a few times.
And Matt, I want to emphasize on, because I want to be fair, right?
Yeah.
And this, the old saying, and I always, I'll keep on saying it, there's bad actors on every side. Not everybody's going to be 100% clean when it comes to it, right? But, some of the things where maybe I could see where the editing of an IA's estimate is, for instance, if the IA only wrote for replacement cost value benefits, but the desk adjuster saw that it's an actual cash value policy, maybe, and just adds the ACV depreciation. I'm trying to come up with ways, something that's really policy specific, where it's a necessity to make a change to the actual estimate, but not to harm the policyholder. Does that make sense? Like,
I mean, even if there was an endorsement that reduced coverages for something that was specific to this policy and not in all of them, so the IA made a mistake, didn't know they had an endorsement, they could easily put that into a limitation in the policy at the end of the report. They wouldn't have to change the line items to change what the coverages are actually covering. They could just add that in. That way they're not hiding some damages or just being fishy as hell, basically.
agree.
Yeah. Well, I think it's about, the narrative and what actually happened to these homes and trying to prevent. Again, I agree. I think, there's actors, bad actors on both sides, and like public or independent adjusters, like they make a commission on every claim. So it benefits them if this person needs a new roof and that person needs a new roof. And I'm sure there's a lot of roofs replaced after hurricanes that don't need to be replaced. But I think the deleting of the photos and the descriptions and the general loss report, language in there, it's all just about the narrative of, like, as I said, like, of what damage is and what they can maybe get away with paying for.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about that narrative sometimes. So what are you reporting on these days? You digging in more on anything?
Oh man. Yeah. Well, I'm toggling between flooding in California, which is where I'm based. We had epic rains that have led to epic snow melt or snowpack, which will lead to an epic snow melt. And so I'm looking at that. And then I am back in Florida insurance world very deeply. I love and hate it. I'm like, I've never had something make me feel so dumb, like, in my entire life. And I'm like, how did I get this? Like, how they're like, we want like 3 or more stories on this for like the rest of the year. And I'm like, cool, like, great. I'm like, I still don't understand like so much of this. So I am on that. I'm in, yeah, well, okay. I'm not like a numbers person either. Like, I'm just like have steered clear away from like business reporting. Like, I'm not interested in finance. And then I'm like, here I am, like waiting through like SEC reports and like stocks and like dividends. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm looking at, I've been investigating how the system in Florida works, like how these companies are allowed to start up, how much money they have in their reserves, how they're allowed to operate kind of, unregulated, or at least they were pretty unregulated, how reinsurance, how they're able to buy and pay for services from themselves, the like web of how all these companies work. There's never just one carrier. There's like a carrier who has a reinsurance company, another reinsurance company, and a technology company, and a claim servicing company, and this company, and they're all connected. So that structure is very interesting to me. So I'm trying to dig into that. I want to look at, we've talked about engineers, how insurance companies use engineers as a way to get out of paying claims. I got another really good tip about mold remediation and how those standards are far beneath what they should be. So there's a lot that I'm trying to look into.
You hear that?
You had a tip about mold remediation standards being less than they should be. Interesting.
Yeah, it was actually very fascinating. So I got a tip from a great source who, it's complicated, but basically like FEMA and insurance companies are using like they're hiring these mold like remediators who are coming in, and instead of like pulling the mold out, which is more expensive, they dry it out and then they spray it with this like
antimicrobial,
which are not healthy. And that's actually like substandard. Like, it's not where that's not like actually like how mold should be removed and treated at a home, but that's just like the guidelines they're following. And it's so that's really fascinating to me. And meanwhile, you have all these people in mold living in mold, and their health is impacted. So that's a story that I would like to get into. And then any other tips that people have for me, I'm wide open.
Hey, Matt, I think the article or story on engineers, carriers, engineers is going to be a big hit. I really do. Anybody has at some point in time in their career has had some type of issue with a carrier engineer.
It's very misleading.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, engineers just sound so damn impressive. If your insurance company is saying, well, we're not only going to further investigate the loss to make sure that there's not some coverages that we forgot about for you, we're going to send out an engineer. And they are so smart. They could build friggin' space shuttles. That's how good these guys are. There's no way you're getting a better investigation. They're very impressive people. They get all the women because they're the best. So, it's
pays to be an engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was close. I didn't quite live up to the engineer.
Same. But I get to talk to them now. So that helps.
Yeah. So now the engineer issue is something we've talked about on this show a lot. It's something everybody is definitely starting to realize, and it's becoming more and more prominent. But it's not just engineers; it's any third party. So, just like in your own investigation for the slashing issue, these TPA firms are third parties. We've got weather reports that are coming from third party weather analysis companies, meteorologists that seem to be possibly fraudulent or misleading. And all of it is it's misleading. It's written in such a way that can be purposely misinterpreted. The fact that in your report you talked about one of these companies, I forget which one, TriStar, working for Heritage, says that Heritage doesn't want them to write what the cause of damage is in the reports. In the photo captions, nothing. Yeah. So by not putting what the cause of loss is, it allows it to be purposely misinterpreted, I suspect, to be able to say, well, he said that was damaged, but he didn't say it was damaged by wind. We think it's damaged by this.
Right. So, past wear and tear.
You're right. Wear and tear. I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of the biggest issues with the engineers. There's this issue with proximate cause and efficient proximate cause and concurrent causation and all this stuff that is confusing as hell to the best of us.
I mean, I consider myself like, a semi-intelligent person, and I haven't even touched the clauses of the report. I'm like, I'm not ready, but it's like you need a whole other job to understand what's in that. And then it's totally purposeful.
It is. I mean, if I was to ask 3 different adjusters what the cause of loss is on something that has wear and tear, let's say the age of it allowed it to be more susceptible to the hurricane winds. And then hurricane winds came through. What's the cause of loss? Half of them, an engineer would say wear and tear automatically. But half of the adjusters would have some confusion on whether or not wear and tear is a cause of loss. As it turns out, by the way, wear and tear is not a cause of loss. It is a condition. Unless it just fails as a result of being old by itself without any outside forces, it's not the cause of loss. It's a condition. A condition can't be a cause of loss. So that is just the condition of the property at that time. If it is that condition and they are still collecting premiums and they are still covering that property, then it doesn't matter what the condition is. If wind comes through and causes damage to it, the cause of loss is wind. But the third-party firms aren't taught this kind of thing. There's also a concurrent causation doctrine in a lot of states that discusses whether or not there is 2 of them. One's included, one's excluded, and I'm going to lose half my audience with this conversation. But generally speaking, if there are 2 causes of loss acting at the same time on the property to cause the loss, if you can't separate those, if you can't take the wear and tear and the wind damage and separate out, that's all wear and tear damage over there, that's wind damage over there. If you can't do that, which you can't on these, then they cover the wind. They always cover the wind. But wear and tear is a condition, guys. It's not a cause of loss. But even if it was, generally speaking, most policies would still cover the wind damage anyway. But the third parties aren't naming the wind at all. They're just naming wear and tear and leaving it at that. It's not wind, it's wear and tear. So now the insurance company can misinterpret that and say, well, they said it wasn't damaged by wind, so we're not providing coverage.
That's a really good point.
Sure. I like to use the analogy on the wear and tear is hey, everybody knows tires, right? Majority of people here have a car. If you have a 50,000 mile tire and you run it till it's 150,000 miles and it just pops because it's done, that's wear and tear. Versus if it's a 50,000 mile tire and you're at 40,000 and you hit a nail like a Cat 4 hurricane and it causes damage, that's different. So I like to put things in perspective of where everybody's like real knowledgeable of.
Yeah. I see. Hi, Steve.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to talk to Steven?
Oh, I know Steve well. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, he says hi.
I know. I see
and then
that.
he's leaving.
You call me
So,
Steve.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. And by the way, if Sarah reaches out to you, Brianna, she is so knowledgeable, super smart.
I would love it. Yes.
Super smart.
She actually would be a really good resource for a lot of stuff because she actually has a lot of contacts with some more resources for a lot of stuff. I usually go to her for questions with things.
Great. I need more people like that. Yeah. Right now I'm looking into UPC's bankruptcy and the impact that has had and some of the shady stuff that went on there. So
what kind of shady stuff?
Yeah, let's open up the hood of this car.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to do. I mean, a lot of it's been reported and it's public because it's, a publicly traded company, but just how much the C-level suite, they were getting, and there's retention bonuses when they were going under, and the amount paid to stockholders and dividends when they weren't doing well. Allegations of bad claims handling practices, and more about changing reports and telling adjusters basically not to do their job on like blanket denying late reported Hurricane Irma claims, or like they weren't late reported but reported later, than right after 2017. So
you reported specifically on a Heritage and Florida Peninsula Insurance Company, or in your article.
Correct. Yes.
But now you're saying UPC is doing the same thing. Are there other companies you think doing this too?
I don't have. I anecdotally heard about some other companies who from adjusters who they thought were doing it, but I haven't seen the evidence and haven't reported it out myself. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if a company like UPC that's in receivership is still, even when they're doing poorly, paying out to shareholders, paying their exorbitant fees to their upper management, and transferring money within companies owned by UPC, that would pretty much empty out the coffers for UPC, kind of putting them in a position where they might go into receivership, and then they did. That
is what I'm looking into. I mean, I know that Hurricane Ian caused, I think up to, I don't know how much, they were 1 billion or 1 to 10 billion. I have to look how much that specifically they were thinking they were going to pay out. I mean, it really hit where a lot of their policyholders were located. I think the problem was that before Ian, obviously they were in bad shape and they weren't making the smartest financial moves, just in terms of like, maybe don't pay stockholders dividend payments when you're losing, you're having to pull out of other states, like want to save that money. So I don't know if that was a substantial amount of money that they like moved out of the company, and if it caused them to go into bankruptcy. I mean, I think it's like just looking at what could have been done better, and like, why aren't there regulations in place maybe to prevent that from happening, because it seems to happen quite often in Florida. I think that was like the 6th or 7th company in like 13 months to go under. And several of them too, which I found really interesting, are takeout companies, which are like, they got their policies from Citizens, right? So Citizens is like so big. So these companies like UPC and Weston, I think was another one. Like they got a lot of millions in premiums, and then they go under, and then the policies have to go back to Citizens. So it's like this interesting cycle that I'm trying to better understand. Yeah.
When you were looking into some of this stuff,
oh, thank you, Sarah.
Hey, real quick, Matt, there was a comment that said UPC is an Irma article. That's not accurate. I mean, maybe they talked about potentially, but I can tell you this: it was February of 2023 in which UPC actually went into receivership. So this is a Hurricane Ian article conversation, and he might have it mixed up with another carrier back in 2017 when Irma hit. But
Irma was definitely a big factor in UPC's decline for sure, because they started to get all these like people finding damage in like 2018 and then like reporting it, and UPC being like, oh shit, like we didn't have this money, so let's just like deny these, and then they just kind of kept coming. And yeah, that's like based on people what I've heard.
Right. In the state of Florida in 2017 with Irma, you had 3 years to, go pursue your claim, so to speak. So there was time, but I want to make it clear, UPC went in receivership February of 2023.
Yes, February 28th.
Did you happen to come across any real evidence to suggest that the reason that a lot of these companies are going into receivership is because there's too much litigation?
I think it's a chicken and an egg situation. I think there is a lot of litigation. What I was told, and again, these are from, I haven't, from the adjusters and the people who are in depositions that I've obtained, they say there's all this litigation because the companies were mishandling, underpaying, not adequately paying claims. So I'm sure that, as we have said, there's people who take advantage of situations. And like, I have heard stories of people, or attorneys or contractors, like going to houses and being like, oh, like I can fix this for you. Like this looks broken, or like I can help you get more money, and going to town. I think there was like one law firm that filed like a few thousand lawsuits in a day to try and get
MMA.
Yeah, I think so. To try and get in before the deadline, like
Whoa.
that doesn't look great.
That's a big story right now. Really gave policyholder advocates a black eye too. It was real rough.
Yeah, not
great. They did some real shady things. In fact, one of them, or I think the firm as a whole, they got suspended in Texas now, just yesterday or earlier this morning.
That company?
Yeah.
Huh. I have to look that up.
Yeah. So that, but for the audience sake, MMA, McClenny, Mosley and Associates is the name of the firm in Louisiana, were caught claiming they were representing policyholders when they were actually representing a roofing company that had an assignment of benefits, which wasn't legal in the state of Louisiana either. That company definitely was doing some shady things, and they were getting their names put on these insurance drafts or checks from the insurance company and depositing it to their account. They had no representation of these policyholders at all.
Wow.
Depositing it to their account and then paying out to the policyholders. But they weren't allowed to do that. And then there was this whole fiasco on how they were advertising, which is very strict for attorneys. As Remington knows, it's kind of a pain in the ass advertising or soliciting as an attorney, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is. And it's state by state regulated on your advertisements. Yeah. But I do. Okay. Litigation in Florida at some point, obviously, I believe, I think everybody would agree. You look at the statistics, there are more lawsuits on first party property insurance claims in Florida than any other state, more than likely. But I want to point out, like, that is not what's causing the carriers to do some things that they're doing. Like, I want to highlight something in this article that Brianna wrote. It was a description of the loss that the IA took and wrote in their estimate. It said the roof of the structure was a 30-year laminated shingle, period. The roof was blown off during Hurricane Ian, causing significant damage to the interior of the home, period. What did the homeowner get when they received the actual Xactimate estimate? All of that was erased. The only thing that was on there was the date stamp. Like, all right, blame what's happening on plaintiffs' attorneys and so forth. And again, there are plaintiffs' attorneys out there that are taking advantage of the system. And it's obvious, clear. A lot of things have came to light lately on one particular firm. But that has nothing to do with these people changing this stuff. And that is like you putting that on there in your article. I mean, that is blatant. That is wrong. That is wrong.
That like the reports that I looked over, I think I got my hands on like 12 or 13 of them. And it was just very striking because talking to these adjusters, they know what they're doing. And I did hear people who are like, you just don't understand how the insurance industry works, or like, adjusters, they don't know what they're doing. And I think I was really lucky that the people who trusted me with this information, they had been in the industry for a long time. And they're like, yeah, we've seen it develop and get bad. Like this has happened before. But now we just decided to speak out because it's become so egregious, and they take their jobs very seriously. And like, I could tell the level, in some of these reports of detail and thought and care that they put into describing and documenting what happened to these people's homes. And for that information to be removed without any discussion that it did seem blatant is a very good word to describe it. So, and it also, there was like, you could see the timestamps on some of these things, right? Like in the exact notes. And people would go through like the desk adjuster, whoever was doing this. It was so quick. Like she would be in one report and they would be then in another one and then another one. So it did seem like very systematic.
They didn't have enough time to really review to be able to make those kind of changes, is what you're saying. It was
well, it just seems it was like, okay, like, this person might have been on a deadline for knocking down these report, the estimates, and so like just kind of going through and erasing and instead of like going through and spending 20-30 minutes on each one and being like, like actually this doesn't look legit. It was very quick in terms of the succession of like one, then the next and the next and the next.
I wonder what a desk adjuster who's doing that is thinking as they're doing it.
Yeah, I would love to talk to one of them.
Have one of those moments where they're like, this seems wrong.
I think that like a lot of people are just afraid to lose their job. Like, I mean, it's like their livelihood too. And these adjusters put a lot out there, speaking out in an industry that's this powerful. So I'm sure the desk adjusters aren't, I would assume that they know that it doesn't sit well with them, but a lot of people are afraid to talk. It's just the nature of this. My industry is trying to convince them otherwise, but it is very difficult.
It's a real shame. I'm actually surprised we don't hear from more desk adjuster whistleblowers, just because it's such a revolving door, that position. Tends to be brand new person that comes in will end up doing a lot of those kind of roles. It's not it's not a seasoned individual most of the time.
Well, Matt, a lot of times they hop from insurance company to insurance company.
There's that too.
Yeah,
or they come from auto and they don't know any better, but they're trying to make a name for themselves in another company. But you're right. I mean, that's their livelihood. So they are fearful that they're not going to be able to put food on the table anymore. So they do what they're told, and they just let the ethics fall on the person that is telling them to do whatever it is. It's awful. But I'd love to hear from some desk adjusters. That's one segment. I have a lot of people, informants, you might call them, on the inside of a lot of places, but there are always field adjusters or field engineers or something along those lines that tend to be the ones that really or the ones that are willing to speak out the most. Maybe it's because they're not inside that office getting indoctrinated constantly day by day. They're out in the field. They get time away from it, possibly. I bet their Kool-Aid tastes fantastic at insurance companies. They got the best Kool-Aid.
It's a self-justification thing. Once you do it once, it's easier to do it the next time. And then it's just a snowball effect, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I think this looks like wear and tear. This is not a covered loss. Oh, if I erase that Hurricane Irma committed significant damage to the interior of this house, I'm not lying to anybody. I'm just not informing them of all the information. Like all these little steps. I don't know. It's human nature sometimes.
I was about to say human nature. It's like we all like to, lie to ourselves. I think we lie to ourselves every day. So, and people just do it on a grander scale to survive out of fear. I think it's a lot of reasons. So,
hey, if we change one desk adjuster's opinion or the process that they take from this show, then this is a success. Just remember, when you're making these decisions, you're affecting homeowners with their number one investment in their entire lives. So I want to send that out there.
Or you can talk to me anonymously and I can protect you. And it does,
you
don't have to know that it does not have to be out there that you spoke to me, but we would love to hear. I would
do two things. Change the way you do things, business, and then reach out to Brianna and let her.
Well, that is the way to help change things is
exactly.
to, for people who are afraid and don't want their names out there, you can still be a part of the story. So.
And especially if you're going to leave that job anyway, because you think it's crazy that you're doing those things. I mean, you might as well.
Go out swinging.
How often do you get a whistleblower or someone that continues to stay in that position after they talk to you about something?
Quite a good amount, actually. I mean, I think that like all 3 or 4 adjusters I spoke with for this first story, they're still doing their jobs. I'm not sure if they're working for TriStar anymore, but that was like kind of, a contracted position anyway. But I definitely have had people, who've gone out against businesses. Like I did a big investigation into Costco during the pandemic, and workers stayed there because, I mean, I do like to say that while being a whistleblower is very courageous and brave, a lot of the times, and it leads to major change as we've seen. A lot of times, like companies aren't going to like come after that person once they're now under scrutiny. Like it would make the company look a lot worse if they're like, oh, this person spoke out about how we're like terrible and mistreating them. Let's go fire this person now that like all the eyes are on us. Like, so sometimes, being a whistleblower is terrifying to think about, but it also has some type of I don't want to say protection, but I think it solidifies that person a little bit in that company or the industry, because it shows that they are passionate about it. They believe in what's right and what's just, and they're trying to change that and make it right. So we need more people like that in industries.
Yeah, I would love to encourage everyone that is in those kind of roles that has anything to say, that reaching out to someone like Brianna can make a big difference for a lot of people. And we're all in this world to make a difference, right?
Hopefully.
And she'll protect you. That's key.
I will do my best. Yes, we do. We take that very seriously. So,
Brianna, we only got a couple minutes left. Since you dove into Hurricane Ian and you didn't know you were going to get yourself in this, right?
I did not know I was good.
And everything else, like you didn't know this was going to happen.
I did not know this was going to be my new beat.
You're one of us now.
Like
one of us.
Yeah. RIP
to
my social
that you've gone through and like all the people that you've talked to. You don't have to name a carrier or an independent adjusting firm or anything like that. You don't have to name out, but like, what is something that you think big picture just needs to change, that you think is just so alarming to you, that needs to change in the industry, in the climate?
I would say more transparency and action by regulators who are supposed to be regulating. So politicians, lawmakers doing their jobs. That needs, because I think that these companies are so powerful and they yield, they influence elections, yes. But if a state starts to ask for more information, go after an insurance company and levy charge it, just make a statement. I think that would make a mark on the behavior and course correct a little bit, because I know Louisiana is having issues as well, and they're starting to see some of the trends that Florida has been experiencing, but like Texas and Louisiana, like they're not, they get a lot of disasters, and they struggle with this too, and it doesn't seem to be the same level of chaos and.
Uh-oh.
Oh, she froze.
She's frozen. Well, it's a good pose to be frozen in.
Oh.
There'll be so much.
She'll come back. Like she can hear us. Okay, you
Back.
last word we heard was chaos, and all.
Oh,
Texas
yeah, I don't know
and
what happened.
everybody with chaos.
I was saying that like other states that, while they are also having problems like Louisiana and Texas don't seem to be at the same level as Florida. And I was told by some people, like experts, that it's because they have strengthened their laws a bit around insurance, and they don't take as much as I think Florida does. So I'm not sure if that's accurate. I'm sure I'm like really dumbing it down, but I think that would be something that could help a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there are some differences in those states. I think the closer to is Texas and Florida as far as the laws go. There's a lot of consumer protections in Texas that also exist in Florida. They get the attorney's fees that have been taken away now in Texas. But there is a big difference in the amount of claims. There is, and this is a public adjuster issue, but there are a lot of South Florida public adjusters that do act very differently than your typical public adjuster across the U.S. And they do file a lot of frivolous claims that are overinflated. So there is a little bit of credence to what they're saying. But ultimately, Florida's been hit by more hurricanes than all of them combined, with the bigger ones, other than Katrina. But, there's a big difference there. But you're right. It really shouldn't be as big a discrepancy between Florida and those other states, especially when Florida is charging twice the premiums as those other states.
Right.
So,
or like, I mean, we have evidence that people have reached out, like asking for help, like reached out to Petronas himself, reached out to DFS, OIR, like multiple times. And it's like, if these agencies are understaffed, that's something to look at. Like it just seems to me like they don't have as much teeth as maybe they should. And I know this new law is supposed to fix that. So we'll see.
Yeah, it also gives them a little bit more money for hiring more staff so that they can have call-in hours more than 3 hours a day.
Right. That was a great story.
Let's do
Doesn't
this.
make any sense, really. Brianna, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, and Brianna, hey,
let's
let's do this, Matt. Let's do a follow-up. Brianna, when you dive into the carrier engineer matter that you discussed, get some information. Let's have another recap, and let's talk about it, because it's a huge issue, and anybody in this industry is faced it. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I love that.
Let's do it.
We'll have you on the show again and talk about the article that it gets a Pulitzer Prize even. I mean,
I don't know about that, but I just want to continue shining a light on what's going on, and it just breaks my heart for how many people are feeling completely stuck and without any recourse.
It was a very political answer. You would accept the Pulitzer Prize, I assume.
Hey, hats off to you, Brianna. Seriously, I'm
you.
so glad you did what you did, and I'm so glad you're still knee deep in it, and you're still investigating.
I feel like.
Seriously, hey, hats off to you. Round of applause. And I know everybody that I've talked to is literally echoing the same exact thing. So congrats.
I mean, honestly, the learning curve you're going through for half of this shit must be
literally
outrageous.
It's like I cannot even. I need more alcohol. Like that's my answer. Like, I need to be drinking more. That's what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah, those brain cells a break.
Yes, they're gone anyway. Like once I get into the whole like stock insider trading stuff, I'm screwed. So yeah.
That's way more than I can do. Well, thanks again. I'm going to kick you off and wrap this thing up.
Talk later.
Thanks, Brianna.
Bye.
Wow. I'm so excited that today happened.
That was a breath of fresh air.
It's a great show, and there's so much more that she's digging into, and to have someone digging into this stuff as deep as she's going is definitely a great thing. So I'm very excited to see what she ends up writing about. And if she ends up doing that engineer story, and I think that she will, you better believe we're going to have a large impact on providing as much information as possible. And by the way, if you're watching this show and you have any engineer reports from Hurricane Ian, I need them. Please send them my way. Matthew, spelled with one T, at listentothisbull.com. And I can add that to the investigation that I'm preparing to help Brianna out with that. So anyway, thanks again for everyone on the show being here. Next Tuesday at 6 p.m., we have Andrew. Nope. Anthony O'Day. Anthony O'Day would listen to this bull. I forget what we're talking about, but he's with Boss Public Adjusting. So next Tuesday at 6 p.m., I'll have a promo out. We'll talk about whatever that topic is then. If you guys get a chance, listentothisbull.com is finally back up and running. We do have our services page there where you can order claim review, policy review, engineer report reviews. You can also buy t-shirts and beer mugs and other weird shit like that. It's great. But you can help support this channel that way. If you actually think that I'm your hero, then you can go buy a t-shirt or something. I got that statement. I didn't even post it up till just now, Remington, but I thought that would be nice to put there.
Absolutely. This was a much needed show, much needed article that she wrote. And I, like you said, Matt, I cannot wait to see. I have a feeling we're going to see something come out on these engineers, and we need to have a follow-up show on it. There's no doubt about it. There's some engineers right now in Southwest Florida. They're scared a little bit. They're a little nervous. A little bit.
All right. One last thing. Building Experts Institute. BuildingExperts.institute is the website. We just opened up membership. If you would like to join and subscribe to the Building Experts Institute, it is cheap. $109 per month for an individual, and you get access to every online course that's there now and in the future. That's something we just opened up today. So if you're interested in that, buildingexperts.institute is the website. Check out the membership page.
Good for you, Matt.
I'll see you later.
See you guys.